All right, any given Sunday sports special. We are finally back. It's been a while, a real long while. But you know what? It is good to be back. I got my man Steve with me. I got
What's up,
Anthony with
everybody?
me. And as you guys
What up?
know, I am cheesing right now. I am cheesing. I finally got over the hump. I was able to pull it off, get this chip, get this ring. So I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Anthony, I get to join you as far as being a champion. So it just feels
Yeah,
really good, man. It feels really good.
Feel like a new
it
man.
is. Yeah, he got a new car smell.
That's
A
right,
new
man.
car smell.
I don't got to deal with Dom calling me out for not being a champ anymore. It's a good feeling, man. It really is. But you know what? It starts all over again. The journey's all over. I'm trying to go ahead and get this other chip as I know you gentlemen are as well. So we have a lot to get into. Everybody's announced their keepers. All trades are finalized. Guys, we have a lot to do. We're going to start it off with the East. Steve, as always, you always lead us the way. So I'm going to give you the floor, my man.
Let's go. We'll start with your team, man. I mean, you top of the East, the champs. Let's. You made a lot of moves. Let's start with
hmm
you. You ended up doing some moves and ended up now having Zach Ertz on the team. You got Derrick Henry from Dom as well.
Yeah.
And then you elected to keep Melvin and Antonio Brown, man. Tell us your thoughts.
Yeah,
What was the rationale behind it?
Yeah, so to give the specifics, right, I went ahead, I sent $37 to Dom for Derrick Henry, $7, and whose Henry's keeper tag is $7. And then I also went ahead and I sent it was a deal with Gabe where I sent Rob Gronkowski to Gabe. Gabe sent me in return Zach Ertz and $20 additional cap funds. So I mean, on my end was a couple of things, right? Is you have to know when to move on from certain pieces, but also you want to make sure you're in continual opportunities to have keepers, to have choices to make each year, and that's exactly what I think happens with Derrick Henry at $7 potential keeper tag, with Zach Ertz $2 potential keeper tag, and then I already have Antonio Brown, who has a $10 keeper tag, as well as Melvin Gordon, a dollar keeper tag. So it's just keeping my options open, keeping that situation going. That was really my thought process with those deals. But it's gonna be a very difficult battle to try to go ahead and defend this chip. But I feel we're off to a good start. Derrick Henry, yeah, sure. Is he a risk at $37? Absolutely. But the way I see it is that $37 technically you could say goes to Antonio Brown, right? I mean, because I shouldn't be having him
hmm
for $10. Same goes for Melvin Gordon. I shouldn't have him for $1. So to me, it's a low risk, high reward potential there with Derrick Henry.
So
hmm
my thoughts on this are you did really good. You're the team with the second most amount of money. So that's interesting because normally you're typically the guy who waits in the back end. Now it looks like you can mix around and kind of go for the big names that are up there in the beginning of the draft. So that's new to everybody, and I think that's probably new to you.
Yes.
And then on top of that, with the fact that you went Zach Ertz, so a top tight end, so not a Rob Gronkowski. I mean, obviously we know, he's not going to put the same level of points. I mean, he could. The potential's there, and so my point is you're going after guys with high potential because with him, and then also looking at Derrick Henry, if you hit on those two guys, you basically have your trifecta again. But on top of that, if you don't hit with these two guys, or if they don't pan out, the great thing is you have enough money to find somebody else. So I think you got a lot of options.
Yeah, and that was the key, is just keeping them open. And Anthony, I'll give you the floor as well, so you could go ahead and let me know what you think.
I think it's quite simple. I mean, you made the whole process itself unique more than anything else. Like Steve already suggested, there's been a lot of years you didn't come in with money because you already had a bunch of talent. So you had to kind of get maybe this guy or most of the time it was generally just one guy. And then you kind of fill out the rest of it by just doing proper scouting and see now how else everything else is going to be. This year, now the process is reversed. Now you're trying to take on a completely different challenge by basically saying, like, I have the people that I decided to keep. I have enough cash, and I'm really going to get into the pool this year, which you really haven't over the past couple of years. It's always like, if I can find that one guy I can kind of hit on and kind of squeeze it out from here. And I mean, over the past few years, it hasn't worked out so well because, well, you didn't win. But I think this year, a new team, new strategy, not having Brady around, but still holding on to Antonio Brown, who works out well, Melvin Gordon as well. I think, as I always feel, it's basically Rob Gronkowski, and everyone else is like a notch below that. But I think that notch below that between, say, Kelsey and Ertz, it's not as big of a gap as it's been over the past few years. So I think that was excellent for you to do. I think it'd be very interesting to see what you do in the draft, because having these kind of funds with other guys having funds, it's almost like you want to like up the ante. You want to be a little bit more competitive.
Yes.
You have been. You've always been in the market. Like, now I got a championship. Now I can have a little bit more freedom and take a little bit more risk. Let's see how good I really am at this fantasy thing. So I think the deals you made were great. They worked out well in your favor because you got talent and you got money. So I wish you the best in the draft. But overall, what you did, I think you did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you guys for that. I think overall, this is a start. I'm gonna do something where I'm going to be in the bidding for the big name guys at the end of the day. I mean, that's really what this means. I'm going to be in the bidding, and we're going to do this with every team. Who is the one must-have player for going into the draft for the team that you think is the must-get? So I'll give you guys the floor. I'm not going to go ahead and ruin put out my draft plans out there for everybody to know. So I obviously can't answer this question, but I'll give you guys the floor, and then we'll go to the next team.
But yeah, for me, I mean, you have yourself a top running back who's top 10 if you're drafting a normal, snake league. You also have a guy in Antonio Brown who's potentially top 10. So, I mean, Melvin Gordon's probably in most leagues like an early second-round pick if you want to debate that. But Antonio Brown is by far a first-round top 5 pick in almost every league. So you look at it and it's like, all right, this is an auction draft. What else can you add to it? I mean, if there is a way to add a big-time receiver on the other side, and some of these guys on the other side who are available, like a Michael Thomas, an Odell Beckham, one of those two guys on the other side of Antonio Brown, I think that could be magical things right there. And that's just really, really hard to stop. That's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. And what about you, Anthony?
I think that Steve's hitting on something, but I'm going to go in the opposite trend. I think that having Melvin Gordon is great and having Derrick Henry is great. But if you can get your hands on an elite back, if you can get your hands on like a Kamara or Barkley, the reason I say that more than getting another elite wide receiver option, because you have one. You have that Willard in the chamber. You have Antonio Brown. You have the great Antonio Brown. Not much can really go wrong with that. So if you find a quality number 2 or something else like that, but running back is so thin that if you can get yourself another elite option, because if something happens to Gordon, like, okay, you say I can plug Henry in, but that's a real steep drop-off. Let's say something happens to Kamara and say, well, I still have Gordon, or vice versa, or something happens to Gordon and I have, Saquon Barkley, something to that degree. Because there's not that many great running backs out there, and they're going to go fast, and they're going to go pretty much expensive. So that's the whole point of you having the money. So I can afford this thing right here. So when this comes up and something happens to my number 1 back, I have a guy that's just as quality. There's a little bit more depth at wide receiver that you can probably get by with quantity if something ever happens to Antonio Brown. But I would suggest maybe swing a little bit more towards running back than you would towards wide receiver. But 13, what do you possibly do? Of course, you're not going to give away the game plan, but
I mean, what am I going to possibly do? I'm going to try to win. That's all I can really say is I'm out here trying to win. I got to make sure that this isn't a fluke, and I got to keep it going. I would love to tell you guys more, but all I can tell you is get your popcorn ready. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a really, really good time. That's it for me, though.
Basically, you're playing, I'm going to buy somebody. Gotcha.
Yep, there you go.
All right. Next team. Let's go to a good rival of yours who turned some heads for me, in my opinion, this year. Let's look at Pops' team. So Pops' team today, as it stands, has Aaron Rodgers for $19, Ezekiel Elliott for $43, and the trade that got him a lot of money, Julio Jones, who was originally a $54 tag, got him from Rich for $5, giving him $151 in cash. I'll start with you, Anthony. What do you think about this team and how he looks?
I think it's interesting, and it happens every year. I think that if you're able to pair and put together a roster that we're going to go off ADP, that, Rodgers is probably the top quarterback out there. Ezekiel's probably top 5 back. Julio's probably a top 5 wide receiver. You don't really get to pair that all the time. It's not the fact that he's putting that together, that he's putting that together with $151 left over.
Yeah.
So, similar to Jesus, the only thing that he doesn't have to worry about is a quarterback, but if he wanted one of those major pieces, either at wide receiver or at running back, he can grab that. That's what everyone generally hopes for. You find, something else to complement your team. In this instance, it may be another running back. Again, like I said, it's scarce. You got the money for it. You probably need to get what you're going to get. Julio he's so funny. He's inconsistent. I love him. It's just a very, very love-hate thing with him, because it can be 8 one week, then 15 another week, then 31 out of the blue, then back to 8. It's wild, but you have him to deal with that kind of wild variance. But if you got him, you got him. And having those 3 guys together at a pretty good price is not anything you really bother with to complain about. I think I'm more impressed that he somehow ended up $151 after having Rodgers, Elliott, and Jones. I think that's the most impressive thing that he did. Barring Jones, just make sure he didn't really cripple his cap with it. We'll get back to what he thinks, or what I think that he could probably do in the draft. But Jesus, what are your thoughts on Pop's offseason?
I don't think it was a good one. I don't think it was a good one. I think that he went from having Leonard Fournette, in my opinion, probably a top 5 running back, because he did the trade with Steve, I believe it was, for Kareem Hunt, right? And while I I couldn't believe that, that trade happened. I get why Pops did it. He didn't want to pay the $20 tag on Kareem Hunt, right? So he went ahead and he sent it to Steve. So he basically paid $5 for Leonard Fournette. Okay, I could live with that. Long term, I think that, Kareem Hunt $5 is probably a really good deal. But for some reason, he decided to move on from that. So I let that one go. So then he had Leonard Fournette. Okay, Leonard Fournette's come into camp. He's lost a lot of weight. So I was like, okay, maybe he was on to something, right? Because the guy's really in shape. Then he goes and he trades him. And he trades Leonard Fournette for Julio Jones and $18. I'm sorry. Can somebody just help me understand this here? Julio Jones, right? How good has he been? Is he really that good in as far as fantasy football goes? I'm talking about fantasy. We're not talking about NFL. I want to be very, very, very clear here. We're talking about fantasy football. I'm going to go over some of his numbers from last year. Here are his numbers. Week 1, 6, then 10, then 9, then 3, then 7, 15, 7, 11, 5, 7, 40, 2, 9, 5, 14, 8. That is not good. That is an average wide receiver at best. But because he had a 40-point game, his points per game look skewed. That's what throws it off. So what that tells me is the man that does the most homework supposedly in this league didn't do his homework. He absolutely did not do his homework. Every year they say the same thing. We're going to involve Julio Jones in the red zone. We're going to give him more red zone targets. He's going to have more touchdowns. And every year it's the same trash that happens. He gets between 3 to 5 touchdowns in the season. You know how many touchdowns he had last year? 3. And all training camp last year, they were saying how he was going to get way more red zone looks. While Devontae Freeman's on that team, ain't no red zone looks going to Julio Jones. Let's be very clear on that. There are no red zone. There are none. 2 of his 3 touchdowns came in one game. 2 of his 3 touchdowns came in one game. So I think Pops did a horrific job. First of all, trading Kareem Hunt. And then on top of that, getting Leonard Fournette. Okay, we can live with that because he's a really good player. Then maybe he would have flipped him. But then trading Leonard Fournette for Julio Jones. And also Julio Jones is older than both of those guys. There's no logic in that. I'm sorry, Pops. You're great at fantasy football, but I don't know if this is just basically a sign that times are catching up to you. But this ain't it, bro.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to put some sense into this conversation.
Please
and
do
disagree.
So. Please.
I'm gonna have to disagree. At the end of the day, I get what you're saying. If you look at the retrospect, when you look at fantasy numbers, yes, I get that. But the one thing that we have to keep in mind, gentlemen, is at the end of the day, we're talking about the future, not the past, right? And if you're looking at Pops and you're saying, look, 3 touchdowns was an anomaly. One game of significance, which, you know, in fantasy world, it's basically wins that a wide receiver gets you. He basically only had 1 last year, right? That's an anomaly. I'm suggesting that Pops probably did this knowing that Julio Jones had a off year and will come back up to the top. And maybe you have to pull numbers from 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But if Pops is going off that logic and it's only going to cost him $5, now mind you, he gave up, potentially a guy in Kareem Hunt who could be that top guy for years. But you can do that when you have an Ezekiel Elliott on your squad already. And you can do that with Aaron Rodgers. Now, Jesus, if you said, had he traded Ezekiel Elliott and kept Kareem Hunt, right? And then had Kareem Hunt's $5 tag and then did this with Ezekiel Elliott, maybe you have an argument, right? I don't know. Maybe there's justification there. But at the end of the day, the man is still getting a top 5 wide receiver at $5. At the end of the day, whether you like it or not, whether strategy-wise it makes sense or not, at the end of the day, he has a top 5 in every category. Aaron Rodgers is the number 1 QB today and is rated going forward today at number 1. Ezekiel Elliott is probably the 3rd or 4th best back, depending on who you talk with, amongst all running backs. Also a top 10 and will get drafted in the top 10. And then on top of that, Julio Jones is the 5th best wide receiver. I mean, so and then I would tell you, the only argument you can have, because here are the names ahead of Julio Jones.
Yes.
You have Antonio Brown, who's better. You have DeAndre Hopkins, who's better. Mm-hmm. You have Odell Beckham Jr., who's better. Mm-hmm. I can make an argument for if people wanted to throw Keenan Allen, I can make an argument for even Michael Thomas. Actually, I think Michael Thomas today is better.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But then you go down the names, and it's a toss-up, my man. So, you know, I mean, Mike Evans is a great wide receiver, but Julio Jones has the bigger potential. You know what I'm saying? Then you keep going down. Tyreek Hill. I think Adam Thielen's not going to do the same. I mean, maybe he is with his quarterback there, but it's a different coordinator. You know what I mean? Like, so you start going down these names, you know what I mean? There's some guys down there with high potential, but you can't put them over Julio Jones today. So I don't hate this move as bad as you do. And I think Pops is maybe onto something and buying him at his lowest value, knowing that maybe this is the last year Julio Jones can put up top 5 numbers like he used to.
Okay. All right. I allowed you to go. I mean, I let you go ahead and spew some Steve-isms where you try to go ahead and defend it, and I get it because you're the one that kind of started this whole trend with Pops, and you want to make sure you keep those trades going. I respect that, Steve. That's love. That's all love right there, my man. That's all love.
It's not about the trades,
but
man.
let me go ahead and correct
numbers.
Let me go ahead and correct you on some things, my friend. You make it seem like it was an anomaly that he didn't have a lot of touchdowns and all these stuff. My main man, Pots and Pants. He's only had double-digit touchdowns once in his career. One time. That is it.
I get it.
That is it. Prior to that, okay, let me give you his career touchdown.
But he had the yardage. He had the points.
But he had fantasy, yardage.
Not just touchdowns.
But he had yardage last year. He had yardage. That's fine. He can get you all the yardage in the world. Jarvis Landry can get me yardage too. It doesn't mean that he's a good wide receiver, top 5. It's not. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's not. That 40-point game was the only reason, and he does that every single year. He'll give you that 40 or 30-point game. Maybe he'll give you 2 of them in the season, and the rest are average, bro. They're average. And you can go ahead. You can look at the history of him. You can take a look at the history of our league. This isn't just me spewing random stuff. I've done my research on this guy. He's not a consistent wide receiver. And there's no way that you can prove otherwise, because at the end of the day, you look at the numbers, he's not a double-digit touchdown guy. He gets you yards, but so does Jarvis Landry. So what's the difference between him and Jarvis Landry? Because one is a physical freak. Because one is a but so did Jarvis Landry last year. Jarvis Landry won you a couple games last year too.
But the difference, man, and you got to understand, the difference is sometimes you need one guy that spikes, and Julio Jones is that guy. If you're dependent on the 2 to 3 games that Julio Jones shows up and actually wins you a game, and if you can fill out your roster with other guys that can carry that roster without Julio Jones, then you're onto something. That's all I'm saying. Is maybe Pops is viewing Julio Jones as Pops is like, look, I know I can build a team that can get me around 90, 95, 100 points consistently, right? But I need those 2 to 3 games in the bag where I don't even have to stress about showing up and coaching my fantasy team. That's what I'm saying. He's valuing that. That's my point. That's all my argument is. And if you have a guy who you're guaranteed to get 2 games, 3 games as a win, and as a GM you can build a team to sustain when he doesn't show up, then I can't hate the man for going down this direction.
Okay, yeah. So give me the guy that'll win me 2 games, but be trash all the other games, as opposed to a Leonard Fournette who's going to be consistent every game. Okay,
I'm just saying he's going to get the points from Ezekiel Elliott. He's going to get the points from Aaron Rodgers. And if you look at last year's drafts or in a couple of his year's drafts, he's hit on money in certain places. I mean, he hit on Kareem Hunt. I'm sure he's going to find another guy like that. He's banking on Julio Jones to get him those extra 3 games that will get him into the playoffs, and he doesn't have to sweat it.
I.e. Pops.
That's all I'm saying.
Pops, no, what he's trying to say, Pops, I'll translate for you, is keep his number on speed dial because he loves doing trades with you. That's what that is.
Stop it. Stop it.
Let's go ahead, man. Let's go to the next one, man. This was fun.
All right. Which team you want now? Well, who's available? Let's see. Let's go... Rich is in? No, Rich is not in.
So you want to go to the next team? We could do Jose. Jose is next. Let's go him.
Yeah. All right. Let's go Jose. Let's do that.
So Jose. Yep. You got him?
He has Russell Wilson, $15. Le'Veon Bell, $42. Nothing out of the norm. The difference with him is he's the new guy on the block with $170 in cash. Got a lot of money to spend and 2 players. And I'll kick it off. I mean, $170, 2 players. Le'Veon Bell's the number 1 back, arguably. I mean, some people can argue Todd Gurley is the number 1 back, which is fine. But either way, he has 1, 2 right there. And then Russell Wilson is the 3rd best quarterback, so it's a good starting ground. I think with this guy, it's really going to, because he's new, people are going to want to understand how he responds in the draft, right? He's the big question mark. To me, this is the guy who's the wild card, because we've seen this with Gabe the first year where we were like, Gabe's new. He hasn't seen, our draft style. Once you're in the pit, people change. People become stronger or weaker. Gabe's answered that question, right, fellas? I mean, we can all say easily he's answered that.
He made the playoffs, so yeah, I'd say so.
Exactly. So the same questions are now going to be with Jose, being this, since he's the new guy on the block. With $170, he can go a lot of different directions. In my opinion, he's got a very strong core. I mean, this league was initially a 2-keeper league, and when you look at the money that he has there with his players, with 170, and I think he sold somebody to somebody, which got him a little bit of funds, or maybe he didn't. But either way, the fact remains that he can go anywhere with this team. And when you have Le'Veon Bell can wipe away a lot of mistakes. I would just hope he doesn't go the same route with like Lewis has in the past, where you just dump majority of your money in like 2 to 3 players, and then you can't draft at the bottom, and you can't fill in your team. And then if anything happens with Bell or Wilson doesn't show up, then you're in kind of a uphill creek without a paddle.
Yeah.
That's basically all I can say about him. I mean, as far as players, he's got a lot of different options. Personally, I think he maybe gets himself another secondary running back, not the top tiers, but guys in the realm of the Joe Mixons of the world, around that range to kind of fill out his roster. Go after some decent receivers that have some upside potential that can give him first round potential. So not those guys maybe like Michael Thomas or anything like that, but maybe the second group of guys where he can get some really solid production and build a solid team. Because at the end of the day, he has Le'Veon Bell, and Le'Veon Bell can put up massive numbers. He just needs a team around Le'Veon Bell that can give, a consistent 10 points a game, a 9 to 10 points a game, and let Le'Veon Bell get the 20 or 30, 40 points, because Le'Veon Bell is that type of guy who's going to give you he'll win you 6, 7 games on his own, as long as the rest of your roster shows up. So my advice to Jose is, go after the guys who are consistent, those mid-tier receivers, that can give you a solid 10, maybe occasionally get you 15. So maybe like a T.Y. Hilton or, with luck back, or maybe I would stay away from a Juju Schuster-Smith, but maybe a guy like that who has some upside potential who can give you those type of points. And I think he'll be in a good spot, man. I mean, but again, he can kind of take this team wherever he wants to.
Yep. I think I'll go ahead. I'll go next. Since we are pressed on time because we spent so much time about Julio. I think in regards to Jose and what he's going to do and what his plans are. I think Russell Wilson, Le'Veon Bell, and $170 gives him so many avenues. Not like Gabe. Remember last year, Gabe I think came in with like $230, $240, which allowed him to go ahead and spend $90+ on Odell Beckham. Right. That's not what Jose's coming in here, and I can tell you from speaking with him, that's not his intention. That's not his goal. He's not looking to do it that way. So I do think you're going to see a much more cautious approach from his side. I think a player that I think really fits him is an Odell Beckham type. I think if he can get Odell Beckham to go with Bell, to go with Russell Wilson, I think that puts him right in the top tier category, because he has a number one running back, he has a number one receiver, and believe it or not, people, I know nobody realized this, but Russell Wilson is a number one quarterback. If I'm not mistaken, I think he finished number one in all of fantasy football last year. And nobody even realized that was even the case. So that's props, that's props to Russell Wilson last year. So I think if he can land himself like an Odell Beckham or someone of that type, Mike Thomas, that's going to put him in a position where he's really going to be able to be successful. And Anthony, you're up.
The thing that he's going to have to get over and will have to learn really, really quick is that when you have a year where there's a limited amount of talent, but you have a bunch of people with money, you're going to have to really get adjusted to the idea of sticker shock. You might think a guy will go for X and he's going to go for X plus 30. It's because we already have keepers. We already have guys we already need, so we need another tier one running back or wide receiver to go along with it. And there's only so many out there because the other guys are already kept.
Yep.
So you might think, like, I have $170, so I can probably get Beckham for like 50 or 60.
Nope.
You might think that. You're going to be well off, probably around maybe $20 off, but that's what happens. And you see your 170, you had to pay 80 for this guy, and it goes to 90, and I got 3 players, and they got $90. Then you get a little bit panicked. What am I going to do with this? I'm going to fill out the rest of my roster, and that's where planning and coordination comes out to gate. Yep. Again, I believe similar to Pops, I think if you have a quarterback and you have either a running back or a wide receiver, either pair up the wide receivers or pair up the running backs or find something that's opposite. So having Le'Veon Bell is great, but say having Le'Veon Bell and Alvin Kamara to go along with it. Understanding that I know there's a deficiency in your pass catchers, but they both do a lot in the passing game anyway. That's where they also gain additional points. They're not just, they're not your run-of-the-mill running back.
Yep.
They're going to be in the passing game. They'll get yardage that way. They'll get in the end zone via ground or via air. That's maybe something, a more versatile piece to look at than maybe an Odell Beckham or Michael Thomas, because with those guys, you're basing it solely upon them being the number one receiver and them getting the ball a ton. They both work in offenses where the quarterbacks may be spreading the ball out a bit more this season. I would suggest probably go after the running backs. Again, it's slim pickings. If you can get 2 top-tier running backs, again, you have to also think about it in a sense of the draft and afterwards. You have your guy. Let's say he ends up with Kamara. He's like, well, I have these 2 guys, but I feel comfortable with just riding with Bell. You have a really, really big trade piece. You have to pay for it offhand, but once the money's counted up, you can move him either way, any way you want to improve your team. So with the money, it really comes down to getting the best talent possible and either seeing that's something that you want to stick with or maybe move forward to swap for another piece or something else like that in the future. Because again, I understand we keep our keepers and it's from year to year, but you're trying to win this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, possibility, I say go forward. But with $107, he can do a lot of damage. I just hope that he does and gets ready to pay up. It's going to get expensive.
All right.
All right. Sean's in the East, correct?
Yes, he is.
All right. Let's do
Sean and Anthony are the last two teams in the East.
So we have Sean with Howard, who he traded and got from Gabe for paid $53, and then he has Travis Kelce for $26, giving him $161 in cash. Go ahead, Jesus. What do you think about what's happened here?
I think that he had a very interesting offseason, to say the very least, just because he sold Zach Ertz for $42. And having Travis Kelce, I thought that was a very good move. He made a $40 profit off of that deal. So to me, I absolutely love that move. Then he went ahead and he bought Jordan Howard from Gabe. That one was interesting in my opinion because Jordan Howard, he's an enigma, and I say that in the most respectful way possible. But you just never know what you're getting with Jordan Howard. The guy's not a threat really that much in the passing game, so you really rely on him being able to get you yards and touchdowns, and that's all well and dandy. But Nagy's a coach that likes to throw the ball. He's a very aggressive type of coach, so I'm curious to see what's going to happen here with Howard. I do think Howard has all the potential in the world because now that of the threat of the passing game with Allen Robinson over there, let's see if Kevin White could stay healthy just 1 year. Trubisky another year under his belt. I believe they also got Trey Burton, the tight end from Philly. So I think they're going to try to pass the ball, which may open it up for Jordan Howard, but I'm really curious. I'll be honest, I'm concerned about Sean a little bit because I don't know what he's going to do. He doesn't have that other big name player. I think a player that he really should be looking to go after, in my opinion, is Alvin Kamara. That should be his guy. That should be the guy. Just in case if Jordan Howard doesn't live up to it, Kamara we all expect will be that superstar this year. That to me is where he should go. Kamara, Barkley fine as a fallback plan, but I think Kamara should be his number one target going in.
Yeah, for me, I thought this was a terrible move. I honestly, and the only reason why is I am desperately afraid of Jordan Howard because if you read articles about what's kind of happening and how Nagy's saying that he wants to split his time and to your point, he wants to pass. To pay $53 for a Howard, he was better off, to be quite honest with you gentlemen, he was better off just holding on to the money, coming into the draft with 200 plus, and then literally bullying people around in the first 3 picks. Because he could have bullied people around for Saquon Barkley, bullied people around for Odell Beckham, bullied people around for Michael Thomas, and these are probably the top 3 names that are being thrown out, right?
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And I can keep going. Alvin Kamara is going to be right after that too. So really, those are the top 4 names that are going to be thrown out in the draft. And now people got to deal with Sean in every single one of those aspects. Now, I mean, yeah, $161 is still a lot. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's still up there with most of the other teams. But the problem is now his next pick really has to matter because he's already, in my opinion, taken a huge risk with Howard. Don't get me wrong, gentlemen. I love Kelce. I think Kelce's a great tight end. He made the right move keeping him and selling Ertz. He did the right thing. But you don't mess up a right thing with a wrong thing by adding Howard for $53. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And Howard, guys, I mean, whether you look at it PPR or regular, I mean, there's still a bunch of names that are above him that he probably, arguably, maybe could have gotten around the same price or cheaper. You know what I'm saying? And I honestly think like Jordan Howard is the biggest risk. Like honestly, if I were him, it would have made more sense for me to go after a Joe Mixon, who's if you look at most draft ADPs, like they're right there with each other. You know what I'm saying? And Mixon, by the way, has higher upside because you're seeing him even in the preseason game. I mean, he was used a lot. I'm just terrified of Jordan Howard because of all the information that's out there. And I'm assuming that Sean did his research and maybe he knows something that I don't know. But even in my other leagues, that is one guy that I'm avoiding at all costs is Jordan Howard. Now, if you wanted to go after Trubinsky or some of these receivers because they have some upside, okay. But Howard, to me, I think he's going to be a tier 3 to bottom tier 2 running back, and to pay $53 for that, that's a lot.
Yikes! Tell them how you really feel. All right.
That's a lot.
Anthony, go ahead. We're running short on time. Go ahead.
Let's keep this quick. One, all coaches are liars because everyone sees something like, oh, this guy is this and that and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter. If Jordan Howard performs the way he's been performing, he's going to be on the field a lot more than often. 2, every coach every year and every preseason says this famous quote, and everyone says it. He's in the greatest shape of his life. It's your job, right? But no one cares. Of course, you're going to look great in preseason. Of course, you're going to get in greatest shape of their life. They've lost weight, so on and so forth. Doesn't matter. I want to see the guys out there performing. I understand him doing whatever he had to do for Howard because at 53, okay, that might be a touch excessive, a little bit. But like I said, the running backs I've already mentioned, we know that the price is going to be well above that. And there's no guarantee he's going to get that guy, but he has this one. And since it's really slim pickings at running back, you take the guy that's there.
But Anthony, if he had the money, he could have went after a Saquon and Alvin Kamara. Who's better than this guy?
That's the thing. He has 161. He still can. He still can.
I know he still can, but it's different. It's different when you have the most money. Because then you don't care. If you get to the 60s, you've offset it with the profit that you made. That's my point.
Right. But the thing is that you want to make sure you got some kind of talent. The thing that I actually disagree with is actually keeping Kelsey and trading Ertz. I know it might sound weird, but my logic is this. I've always felt and still feel, and the numbers prove it out, if your name isn't Rob Gronkowski, it really doesn't matter what you're trying to do at tight end. I think since Travis Kelce was a bigger name, I think could have got more value for him. I think it would have gained you more cash, and you would have had Ertz as a keeper cheaper. A cheaper keeper. There we go. I said that incorrectly. If you do that, then say your 161 jumps up to 175. Then even if you keep Howard, you got 175, so you can go ahead and get your Beckham or Thomas or Kamara or Barkley or whatever you can, right? I think it's not a mistake of keeping Howard. I think it's a mistake of keeping Kelsey because I think you have better brand value than that guy, so you go ahead and move him off the books and make more money that way. Again, you forgot overpays for him. He overpays for him, but it happens. But can I complain about what he's done? I really can't complain about what anyone's done as much as I think about it because none of this really matters until the draft comes up. As long as you kept talent or if you move talent to try to, create more money to get better talent, I agree with that. It's not like as if he stood pat. He did what he thought was best for his team. I don't have a problem with Howard for now. I don't think he's going to be as productive as the other running backs, but you got 161. That still means you can still get one of those other elite running backs if possible. So I won't complain about his offseason. I'm just very interested to see what he does at the draft with this money and those 2 players because he's going to need some help, but I think Sean's a smart guy. He can figure it out.
Look at you being nice to Sean after last year. Sean coming at you.
Yeah,
and
no.
Steve coming at Sean. I don't know what's going on here. We got one more team. We got one more team, and Anthony, that's your team.
All right, yep. And Anthony, I mean, as we know, kept David Johnson for 46, kept DeAndre Hopkins for 27, traded for Evan Ingram with Dennis, got him for $18. So he has $133 in cash. You had to give up, I believe, a really good receiver in
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'll kick it off to you, Jesus. What do you think?
Oh, you're gonna have me go first. All right.
Yeah.
Anthony, I love what you've done this offseason. It hurt giving up Keenan Allen. I preferably, like I've told you in the past, would have liked to see you give up David Johnson as opposed to Keenan Allen, just because the lifespan of a receiver as opposed to the lifespan of a running back, all of those factors. So that's just my opinion. With that said, if you were going to move Keenan Allen to get a potential of Evan Ingram, and on top of that, to get the $24 of cap going into the draft was huge. So with that being said, I don't think you could have done any better than what you did in moving Keenan Allen. So props to you on that. I think David Johnson I believe he did play in this preseason game, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he didn't look too bad either. So you guys could correct me if I'm wrong on that. But DeAndre Hopkins, I know we all know he's going to be great. I think he's going to go out there. He's going to be a rock star continuously, as long as his quarterback is healthy, right? Because he's always relying on that. But I think Evan Ingram is a key piece for you here. And here's why, Anthony. You always love to say that tight end position, if your name isn't Gronk, you're just everybody else. And I completely get that. But Evan Ingram's has potential of a wide receiver type. That's how much potential this kid has. So I really want to see you, Anthony, go ahead and add to that. Maybe get yourself a Kyle Rudolph just in case to protect yourself, right? If Evan Ingram doesn't live up to that potential. And then I want to see you get a connection here. I don't know how you can do it. I don't know if you can pull it off. But if you can somehow get a Watson to get that 12-point connection to go with Hopkins, bruh, it's game, set, and match. I think that puts you as a championship contender, and that's really going to put you on the radar. That's really what I want to see you do to really cap everything off, because you had a really good offseason.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, the one thing that I'll say is I'm glad. I agree. You had to move one of those guys because of the cap situation. And even though all three of those guys were tremendously good, and giving up a Keenan Allen hurts, I honestly think that Evan Ingram has huge upside. Great. And the only reason I said this is because I read something and people were saying that, well, because Odell Beckham's going to come back, actually Evan Ingram's production's going to go down. And I read this in the magazine. I'm not going to state who, because I read a bunch of magazines. But the point is, Evan Ingram was only 2 points less in production when Odell Beckham was on the field, which is humongous. So my point is, I think that Evan Ingram deal is honestly probably what's going to give you the advantage, because everything that I'm seeing, I think Evan Ingram's going to finish better than Delaney Walker.
Great.
And he's definitely going to challenge Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce.
I agree with I agree with Kelce. I don't think he's gonna compete with Zach Ertz, but I do think he's gonna be top 3. I couldn't agree with you more.
He's going to be in that discussion.
Yep.
And to me, the fact that you were able to net a guy back with that much value is magnificent. You are basically set at tight end. All you have to do now is fill the rest of your roster. And now that you've freed up that cap space at 133, I think honestly, and I've seen you draft in the past, you can get guys with absurd value, and I think you're going to do it again this year. I think you're in a really good position. That's my take on it.
All right, Anthony, close us out.
I mean, we're running low on time, but I'm going to do fine. I just got to find someone else to pair with the guys I got. I think Hopkins is a top 3 wide receiver. I think that Johnson is probably a top 3 running back, and Ingram at worst is probably a top 5 tight end. That's not really bad to start off with. You got to kind of fill out the roster around him, and I think I'll be fine.
All right.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. Well, that's the East Division. Really quick, guys. We're gonna go ahead and don't even explain why, but just pick your standings. I'll go first as far as how you think the East is going to shake out. I'm going to go ahead and I'll go first. I have the Powers finishing first. I have Anthony finishing second. I have Jose finishing third. Pops fourth. And I believe Sean I have finishing fifth.
So for me, reverse Anthony and Jesus, and then move Pops up 1.
And then
I think those are the top 3, and then the other 2, 4th and 5th. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Anthony?
Jesus first, Pop second, Anthony third.
Between Jose and Sean.
So Jose and Sean. I would say Sean fourth, Jose last.
Okay, that's it. Well,
there you
guys,
have it.
We'll be back to do the West Division. Thank you for tuning in. We are out. Peace.
Adios.